So today, and with my friend Kim Castell, whom you know from our previous documentaries. And Felix, you are a futurist, right? You were director of the Futurist Society at the Hudson.
Had no post in the World Future Society at the Hudson Institute, which was an advisor to governments. I was director of the Futures program, which studied alternative futures, what might happen, and made it available to firms, universities, research institutions on whether they paid us or not.
It was a private
for our
institute.
services was optional, which meant it wasn't very forthcoming. But I did this for 3 years, and then I decided that I was not a good enough fundraiser. We had strict rules. The Hudson Institute made its services available to anyone who wanted them. Didn't have to contribute.
Yes.
And I had to make that clear to potential donors. You don't have to, you get the same with us. It didn't work very well.
Did John F. Kennedy...
I think the man who followed me in the post, I knew he would cheat. And he would omit telling them that. And the Hudson Institute was much better off. It's very interesting. A friend of mine who was new at the Hudson Institute invited me to a celebration when they moved into new quarters on the Hudson River at Harmon on Hudson. And there I met Herman Kahn, and he spent half an hour with me. And there were people there were generals, admirals, people high in the government and so on.
Herman Kahn was a founder, right?
And he then said he had to make himself available to them. And I thought it was very charming of him. But he said, you must phone me next week. I didn't. I thought he was just being polite. But he called me. And he said, you promised to call me. And I said, oh, I think you meant it. I thought you had been. No, he said, I want to see you. When can you come out? So I came out and he offered me a job. And I said, I've just been offered a job by a big pharmaceutical company to be in charge of, from Paris headquarters, of all their operations in Europe, Africa and Asia. With a free apartment in Paris and free schooling for my children in English school and so on. And he said, I offer you half of what they offer you. And I took it. And I never regretted it, except that I really knew without cheating we wouldn't get the money in, and cheating was
not an option.
Not my line.
Yes.
I think you were going to ask a question about Kennedy.
Yes.
Michael, I don't think he knows you're filming him.
About Kennedy?
Kennedy was being assisted or advised by the Hudson Institute, is that right? That was before your time?
Just before
yes.
I came, the Hudson Institute had written a paper what to do if missiles were planted in Cuba.
Yes, that's the story.
And Kennedy followed that.
Yes.
With all sorts of warning. Don't take it out on Berlin, because we'll be very angry.
I need to mention that you were born in Berlin.
Yes.
And today is the 4th of July, 2018. Happy 4th of July, by the way. And
I was
happy
obviously
birthday,
destined for the United States.
Yes, and you went first via England, actually Scotland, right? You went to Scotland.
I went to school in Scotland.
Yes.
In fact, that's the first place I went to when I came to the
Yes.
British Isles. And by chance, Prince Philip of Greece came there, and while there on vacation met the Princess Elizabeth, whom he later married.
Take it first.
I hated every school I was at, from first to last. Absolutely loathed it.
Me too.
In some,
I told you.
yeah, and many of the teachers knew less about the subject than I did. I tell you something else about Kennedy.
Yes.
On the 18th of January, 1950. No, I'm sorry. Yeah. 1963.
He was elected in 1960.
I happened to go to a meeting in Dallas of all the high up people in Dallas who happened to be all
Yes.
Democrats by chance, although Dallas is a very Republican city. But there was the chairman of, what's the company called? An electronics company in Dallas. I can't think of it.
Texas
just now.
Instruments?
Pardon?
Texas Instruments?
Yes, Texas Instruments, thank you. And the mayor of Dallas was a Democrat too, and so on. Anyway, the next morning I sort of went to the building from which Lee Harvey Oswald was supposed to have fired on Kennedy. And the door was open, I walked in, I got up to the floor from which he was fired, up to the window from which he was supposed to have fired. And it was absolutely clear to me immediately that there wasn't a chance in the world that anybody could have fired from that window and hit Kennedy once. It's very interesting. The road turned like this. Here is the building. And so he came up here. You could have shot him with a toy gun. I mean, it was easy. And he waited until he was up here. And you could, from here, firstly you'd have to be a left-handed shooter, which Lee Harvey Oswald was not. Secondly, you would have had to be out on a beam and somebody else would have to hold the other end so that he could lie on it and shoot that. If he was alone, as was alleged, he could not possibly have hit the kill. So I knew it was all lies. I didn't know who was behind it. Shortly before President Johnson died, he was interviewed, I think, with the woman who worked for ABC.
Andrea Mitchell?
What?
Andrea Mitchell?
No.
Walters?
Barbara Walters?
Barbara Walters. Barbara Walters interviewed him and asked him, do you believe the report by the chairman of the report was a former senator of California who then became chief judge?
The Warren Commission.
Warren.
The Warren Commission.
The Warren Commission. Do you believe the Warren Commission report? And to my surprise, Johnson said no. It was his official duty to accept it. But he was no longer president. He was going to die anyway, and few months. He said no. He had to know
Yes.
whether to believe it or not. If it was picked up, he knew about it.
Okay.